Imagine getting paid just for sharing your thoughts on products and services you use every day. With Survey Junkie, it's that simple. Click on the link in the video description to discover how you can start earning today by taking surveys.
On June 29, 2023, the soda industry was bracing for a fresh wave of controversy. A media leak had suggested that a research arm of the World Health Organization, WHO, which had been reviewing the artificial sweetener aspartame, was planning to classify the addictive as possibly cancer-causing. The sweetener, included in candy, soft drinks such as Diet Coke and Diet Pepsi, and common items such as toothpaste, has long been dogged by questions about potential health risks. And such a determination could disrupt consumer spending and billions in annual sales. By the end of the day, the International Council of Beverage Associations, a global group representing soft drinks manufacturers and regional industry groups, issued a statement to preempt the coming report. In the press release, the group's executive director, Kate Loatman, said, "Public health authorities should be deeply concerned that this leaked opinion contradicts decades of high-quality scientific evidence and could needlessly mislead consumers." A few weeks later, the WHO group, formerly known as the International Agency for Research on Cancer, IRC, made its evaluation public. Aspartame was possibly carcinogenic to humans, it said, calling for further research on the link between the additive and cancer. The announcement made waves in the press and drew support from public interest groups. But it wasn't the radical industry-gutting statement that food and drink producers feared. Now, about a year later, questions about artificial sweeteners' health effects remain largely unsettled. Most of the artificial sweeteners used today were first developed in the 19th and 20th centuries, driven by consumer demand and producer constraints like sugar costs and shortages. The first widely commercialized sweetener, a chemical compound called saccharin, was accidentally discovered in 1879 by a chemist who had tasted the residue on his hand after studying coal tar. In 1965, aspartame would be discovered in a similar fashion by a chemist named James M. Schlatter, who had been conducting research on anti-ulcer drugs. Schlatter brought his hand to his mouth after dipping them into a mixture of amino acids and took delight in the unexpected flavor. "I licked my finger, and it tasted good," he said, according to a 1982 Washington Post story on his discovery. These ingredients, among others like sucralose and cyclamate, were quickly adopted by food manufacturers as cheap sweeteners that could satiate sugar-craving consumers while being marketed as low-calorie or healthful. Cyclamates, saccharin, aspartame and sucralose may have stories of accidental origins, but their invention, marketing, consumption and even anti-consumption have been very intentional, wrote cultural historian Carolyn Thomas in Empty Pleasures, the story of artificial sweeteners from saccharin to Splenda. They have made and lost fortunes, forged new partnerships between businesses and destroyed others, transformed the landscape of women's magazines, given birth to a food industry, made consumption without consequence a viable pursuit, and changed the meaning of the term diet itself. Despite their long history, the debate around whether artificial sweeteners are healthy or harmful remains unresolved. That brings us back to last year's IRC classification. The agency first began probing aspartame at the recommendation of Center for Science in the Public Interest, a consumer health nonprofit that has been advocating for greater scrutiny of aspartame for over a decade. Among artificial sweeteners, aspartame is the one that we have the most concerned about, said Thomas Galligan, the center's principal scientist for food additives. The evidence is strongest there. We feel it has been pretty credibly linked to cancer. The Food and Drug Administration, FDA, which regulates food additives, first approved aspartame as a tabletop sweetener in 1974, for use in soda in 1983, and for general use in 1996. Throughout this stretch, questions loomed over both the ingredient and the process by which FDA had approved it. In 1982, in response to controversy, a government watchdog agency was ordered to review the approval process, and it published a report finding that the FDA had adequately followed protocol. However, since the 1990s, a steady drumbeat of new and often conflicting research has come out on the additive, most notably a series of studies by the RA.